Good to have you with us. This is ARIRANG News live from Seoul. I'm Laah Hyun-kyung. The stories we're following this afternoon. North Korea fires 2 short-range missiles into the East Sea early Monday in an apparent protest against Seoul and Washington's annual military drills. President Park Geun-hye begins her four-nation trip to the Middle East with a visit to Kuwait. While in the region, she will seek to forge stronger economic ties while also seeking support for her unification plans. And tens of thousands take to the streets in Moscow to honor Russian opposition leader Boris Nemtsov, who was shot dead on Friday. New video footage emerges showing the moment of the shooting. But first, South Korea and the United States have begun their annual joint military exercises today. And although the two emphasize the exercises are purely defensive in nature, North Korea always strongly condemns them as a rehearsal for war. This year, Pyongyang's criticism may have come with more than just words. Hwang Seung-hee has the story.
It appears North Korea launched the 2 short-range missiles in protest against the joint military drills between South Korea and the United States. South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff said the missiles, with a range of around 500 kilometers, were fired into the East Sea from the western port city of Nampo at around 6:30 a.m. Korea time on Monday. It said the firing is probably North Korea's way of showing its opposition to the key resolve and full legal exercises, and added it remains vigilant against any additional launches. Some 220,000 South Korean and American troops are taking part in the annual joint military drills that began on Monday. The 2-week-long key resolve exercise is a computerized command post training aimed at improving the combined forces' operation and combat capabilities. The full legal exercise is a field training involving a set of land, sea, and air maneuvers and runs till late April. This year, the U.S. has deployed a 3,500-ton combat ship, the USS Fort Worth, for the first time. The annual exercises always spark violent protests from Pyongyang. North Korea's military released a statement on Monday, vowing to retaliate, claiming the drills are a rehearsal for a northward invasion. Seoul and Washington say the exercises are purely defensive in nature. Hwang Seung-hee, ARIRANG News.
Senior diplomats from UN member countries, including South Korea and North Korea, will have a heated debate this week in Geneva over Pyongyang's human rights abuses. The North's Foreign Minister Lee Soo-yong is scheduled to address the UN Human Rights Council on Tuesday. ARIRANG's Connie Kim has more on this story.
The two Koreas are likely to have a heated debate in Geneva this week over North Korea's dire human rights situation and the regime's nuclear program. North Korea's Foreign Minister Lee Soo-yong will deliver a keynote speech at the UN Human Rights Council on Tuesday, during which he's expected to condemn the adoption of a UN resolution that calls for the North Korean leadership be referred to the International Criminal Court. Pyongyang has been demanding its human rights record be expunged after North Korean defector Shin Dong-hyuk admitted to falsifying parts of his story about his experiences in a prison camp. However, South Korea will refuse to budge on the issue, as Seoul's Vice Foreign Minister Cho Tae-yeol is expected to call for follow-up measures to the UN human rights resolution during his speech.
Human rights is a very sensitive issue for the North Korean regime. It seems as though North Korea will use all means and efforts to dodge the issue.
The clash is likely to continue during talks over Pyongyang's nuclear program at the Conference on Disarmament. Echoing his comments from the previous UN address, the North Korean minister will almost certainly defend his country's nuclear program by stressing it's necessary for national security.
The nuclear issue will be resolved if and when the threat to our sovereignty and right to life is removed. That means the termination of Washington's hostile policy toward our country.
South Korea's diplomat will likely call for greater international efforts to push the North to give up its nuclear arms. This will mark the first time for a top North Korean diplomat to address the Human Rights Council and the Disarmament Conference. Experts say Pyongyang is desperate to counter the swell of international criticism over its human rights abuses and make the case for its widely condemned nuclear weapons program. Connie Kim, ARIRANG News.
along with a public announcement.
Now, President Park Geun-hye has arrived in Kuwait. This is the first time in 8 years that a Korean president has visited the country. Now, with the biggest ever business delegation accompanying her, she aims to expand Korea's economic cooperation with the region beyond the usual oil and construction projects. ARIRANG's presidential office correspondent Choi Yoo-sun files this report from Kuwait.
Since Korean businesses started winning construction projects in the Middle East in the 1970s, the region has become Korea's largest overseas market for plant construction, generating nearly 40% of total orders received. Korea also depends heavily on oil imports from the Middle East. During her trip, President Park Geun-hye will seek a more diversified and deeper economic cooperation with the region to bring about a new growth engine for the Korean economy. Speaking to reporters prior to departing Seoul, the president said that in preparation for the post-oil era, the Middle East is seeking to diversify its oil-centered industries and improve quality of living through developments in education, healthcare, and infrastructure. She says this fits perfectly in line with her 3-year economic plan to spur growth through innovation and structural reforms.
이번에 이제 제2중동의 붐을 하는 것은 그 중동 지역하고 또 국가들하고 한국하고 또 이렇게 인연이 깊은 것 같아요. 우리 다양한 그 기업들이나 이런 데서 가가지고 서로 협력을 할 일이 많아졌죠.
So when President Park meets Middle Eastern leaders this week, she will discuss expanding Korea and the region's economic cooperation to include healthcare, IT, education, and culture. The cooperative relationship will also develop from simply providing the region with labor and infrastructure to sharing knowledge and launching joint ventures. President Park is scheduled for back-to-back meetings with Kuwait's Amir, parliamentary speaker, and prime minister on Monday. While economic cooperation will likely dominate their discussions, President Park also plans to seek Kuwait's support behind the North Korea and unification policies. Choi Yoo-sun, ARIRANG News, Kuwait City.
A Japanese historian says he hopes his book on the forced mobilization of Koreans during Japan's colonial rule will help restore the dignity of those who suffered. Yatsuto Takeuchi told Yonhap News on Sunday that he published the book this year to coincide with the 50th anniversary of diplomatic relations between Korea and Japan. His book, published in late January, contains the personal information such as age, place of work, and place of death of over 10,000 Koreans who were subject to forced mobilization from 1939 to 1945. Takeuchi estimates that's roughly 1/3 or 1/5 of the Koreans that were killed after being coerced into hard labor or to serve in the military. This is the second time he has published a book like this. The first was published in 2007. A massive crowd gathered in Moscow over the weekend to mourn the death of Russia's opposition leader Boris Nemtsov. Officials are investigating the case, but given the political situation in Russia, there's also a fear that those responsible will never be found. Son Jung-in reports.
Tens of thousands of people gathered in central Moscow on Sunday carrying Russian flags and marching alongside the river Moskva. The streets were filled with protesters holding placards that said, "I am not afraid," in memory of Boris Nemtsov, who was shot dead in the shadow of the Kremlin on Friday evening. Meanwhile, CCTV footage has emerged showing the moment of the shooting. The poor resolution video shows two people believed to be Nemtsov and his female companion walking across a bridge in central Moscow before a snow truck moves behind the couple to obscure the view of the shooting.
This is not a mere murder, but an act of terror. This is politically motivated, and we need to find the truth behind this terror attack.
Police believe there are two suspects involved and have expanded their investigation in search for them. The shooting happened 2 days before Nemtsov was to speak at a major anti-government rally. He was working on a report presenting evidence that he believed proved Russia was directly involved in the conflict in Ukraine, despite official denials from Moscow that it has supplied separatists with troops and weapons.
Boris declared that he would reveal persuasive evidence about the involvement of Russian armed forces in Ukraine.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has described the killing as a provocation and pledged to do everything to find and prosecute the killers and punish them. However, there are fears those responsible will never be found. Nemtsov supporters believe shadowy elements in the Russian government were behind the killing of one of Putin's most prominent critics. 손정인, 아리랑 뉴스.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has arrived in Washington, where he will make his case before a joint session of Congress against a nuclear agreement on Iran's nuclear program. This just as U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry heads to Geneva, where he hopes to finalize a nuclear pact with Iran ahead of a March 24th deadline. Before leaving on Sunday, Kerry said Netanyahu was welcome to address U.S. lawmakers, but warned against inciting a, quote, political football. Netanyahu had accepted the invitation by Republican House Speaker John Boehner to speak before Congress on Tuesday morning, local time, over the objections of the Obama administration. Prime Minister Netanyahu has been adamantly against an emerging Iranian nuclear deal, instead proposing more economic sanctions on Tehran to curb its nuclear ambitions. In the year 2012 for Korea was at its record high.
All of the day's important events close to home and around the world. Join Laah Hyun-kyung live from Seoul.
Mobile shopping market thinks the true meaning of creation shines through. Korea has posted a current account surplus every month for almost 3 years now. The Bank of Korea says January's surplus, the 35th consecutive monthly surplus, amounted to some $7 billion, edging down $80 million from December. It's looking likely that Korea will break its previous longest monthly surplus streak of 3 years and 2 months, which was set in 1986. It's not all good news, though, as a drop in exports coupled with a bigger drop in imports is driving the current account surplus trend at the moment. Exports dropped 10% in January from the same period last year, while imports plunged almost 17%. The central bank says falling global oil prices are pulling down exports and imports. Now, this next report is especially for those anxiously awaiting the release of Samsung's new Galaxy S series smartphones. The Korean tech giant unveiled its latest in Barcelona on Sunday ahead of the Mobile World Congress. Shin Se-min has the story.
This is Galaxy S6 and Galaxy S6 Edge.
These are the most advanced powerful smartphones in the world, with the capabilities no other phone can match. But that's not all. To use a technical engineering term, they also look really cool.
Could this be a game changer for Samsung Electronics? The specifications certainly do seem to make a strong case for that. Introduced Sunday at the Samsung Unpacked event ahead of the Mobile World Congress in Barcelona, the brand new Samsung Galaxy smartphones have a better grip on both design and composition. Sporting a dazzling glass and lightweight metal architecture, the Galaxy S6 and S6 Edge, which comes with a curved display, have a faster processor, a better camera, and most importantly, a fast-charging battery. Samsung ditched a replaceable battery in the S5 and added a wireless charging feature. The new Galaxy line will give the user 4 hours of battery life on a 10-minute charge, 1.5 times faster than the S5. The phone is loaded with a mobile payment system called Samsung Pay that allows for both NFC and magnetic secure transmission payments, much like Apple Pay does. The company is hoping the flashy new handset will help lift its flagging sales and put it back on the top of the global smartphone market after having lost out to Apple last year. Shin Se-min, ARIRANG News.
Although mobile banking has made our lives much more convenient, many still had found the mandatory authentication process troublesome. But starting as early as the first half of this year, mobile authentication could be simplified to just touching one's credit card to his or her smartphone. According to financial institutions on Monday, they are preparing to launch the new method using near-field communication technology. Now, mobile banking customers are currently required to visit banks and receive an access device that provides arbitrary numbers for authentifying each transaction. Now, whether you are a fan of the idea or not, implantable ID chips are no longer the stuff of science fiction, at least not to the workers at an office complex in Sweden. Our Kim Min-ji has this report.
Forget your keys or leave your company ID card at home? That's no longer a problem for workers at Epicenter, a high-tech office complex in Sweden, as workers can now access things with just a wave of their hand. Their key is a 12mm radio frequency identification chip implant.
It felt pretty scary, but at the same time it felt very modern, very 2015.
Employees with the chip implant can get into the office and unlock the photocopier. They can also exchange business cards with people they meet by swiping a hand over their smartphone. Although the chip's functions are limited at this stage, the CEO of the complex expects much more.
Payments is, I think, one area. I think also for healthcare reasons, that you can sort of communicate with your doctor and you can get data on what you eat and sort of what your physical status is.
The chip implant is optional for workers in the office complex. The manufacturer says it poses no harm to the human body and will not set off metal detectors and is also safe during MRI scans. But while it may seem innovative and tech-savvy, some have voiced concerns that it could be an invasion of privacy and pose a threat to a person's security. Kim Min-ji, ARIRANG News.
On this week's Industry Insight, we are going to take a look at Korea's dynamic and rapidly expanding webtoon market. Cartoonists and the agencies that support them are pumping out content onto a variety of platforms. Our Kwon So-ah has this week's Industry Insight.
Scrolling and touching, anytime, anywhere. Korea's webtoon market is doing better than ever, spilling into other media like dramas and movies. The industry is expected to be worth some $270 million this year. Webtoon makers are kept extremely busy with loads of original content uploaded every day, and most of it is free.
Back in the day when Koreans had to make do with comics printed in books and magazines like these, they never hesitated to dig into their pockets to buy or even borrow them.
Accessibility used to be key, but that led to the perception that webtoons should be free.
More platforms charge money now. What attracts people to them is that there are no constraints in regards to their language or content.
Webtoon story writer Chun Jin-seok, who is busy with his real estate serial Realtor, and Lee Jong-bum, whose psychological thriller webtoon Dr. Frost has been turned into a TV drama, agree that the boom helped rookie webtoonists and fostered intense competition, resulting in better overall quality. But the process takes more than major platforms and star webtoonists.
From producing to publication and promotion, we assist artists and decide on which pieces could be developed into dramas or even characters.
On portals, the only way to evaluate webtoons is by the number of hits. A Comics is a web magazine without comics. We provide information to the general public, not manic fans.
What would take Korea's webtoon industry to the next level? Success overseas.
Before, individuals tried to elbow their way into the global market, but now they have a better chance, as the web portals do it for them.
Experts say this year the industry could make its mark on the world stage, but only if it chooses the right themes, gets the translations right, and builds global networks. 권소아, 아리랑 뉴스.
A famous Italian artist who is recognized for his abstract sculptures has landed in Seoul with a gallery full of his many eye-opening works. Our Im Hyun-hye joins us today to tell us more about this exhibition. Good afternoon, Hyun-hye.
Good afternoon. Right. So Italian sculptor Novello Finati, he's been recognized for decades for his absolutely beautiful works and sculptures and contemporary art, mostly for his sculptures. Now he's brought some of his most popular works to Korea. Take a look at this next report. A baby in its mother's womb is a precious symbol of life. This baby is already leaving an imprint on its mother. Verona-born artist Novello Finati is praised globally for his approach to art, using sculpture to capture life's special occasions and the unique aspects of humanity.
Through a boundless imagination, dreams can embody the hopes of a father. It carries the message of not wanting to wake his precious sleeping daughter.
Finati takes a modern approach to his work, creating abstract sculptures that echo our world, but also suggest a different part of our lives.
Humans are born on Earth and are reborn again. I wanted to create that flow.
This leg, with a jutting arm holding a pair of lips, is not something you'll see in reality, but it represents a new, mysterious part of our world, a part that Finati wants to explore. His abstract modern works have captured the imaginations of people from around the world, and now they're catching the attention of Koreans. Buongiorno is Italian for good morning, and that's just what Italian sculptor Novello Finati's works convey, each sculpture embracing a cherished part of our lives.
So what material does Finati work with?
Right, so Finati works mostly with marble and granite, so a lot of stone material. He's really praised for his work in detail and especially his imagination that goes behind each piece. Now his works have been featured in biennales and exhibitions all around the world, so he really is an accomplished artist.
Right, so you were telling me earlier that he also had a chance to work with a very world-renowned Korean sculptor as well?
Right, so Finati himself is a very reputable artist, and he made remarks about how Kim Young-won, who is a Korean sculptor, how good his work is, and as a result he got a lot of attention, and Kim was given a space in front of the City Hall in Padua, Italy, which is the first time for any foreign artist to be given, I guess, such an honor, and so he got a lot of recognition for that. But Kim, to put him in perspective, in Korea he made the King Sejong sculpture in Gwanghwamun Plaza, so he in Korea as well is very recognized and is very accomplished.
Okay, so in Korea, Kim was very recognized, but I guess he became more world famous after meeting with Finati then.
His work in Italy got a lot of attention.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Hyun-hye, for today's report. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today.
Well, next time then.
Okay.
Hello, I'm Michelle Park here with the latest weather forecast. We begin the first month of spring today here in Korea, and the sky is looking crystal clear, but we have an unwelcome guest with us as well. And at the moment, we have a considering amount of flying dust in the air all across the nation, approximately 100 micrograms per cubic meter, which is about 3 times higher than the usual. Now, we also have a good amount of yellow dust particles as well. Now, but we are expecting the air quality to get better throughout the day as the temperature rises. And besides that, we can expect a mild afternoon with readings 2 to 3 degrees higher than yesterday. However, it's going to get chillier tomorrow with rain nationwide in store for us. Now, taking a look at the readings for today, Seoul will peak up to 10 this afternoon, while Gwangju and Busan will be getting both up to 11 degrees. Moving over to other regions, Jeju gets up to 10, Dokdo hits down to 8, while Mankungang is chilly at -2 degrees. Well, that's all for now. I'm Michelle Park, and here's a look at the weather conditions around the world.
And that brings us to the end of our newscast. I'm Laah Hyun-kyung in Seoul. Another edition of ARIRANG News with me coming up at 4 p.m. Korea time.